One of the more common rhetorical themes of the Democratic Party is that it's wrong to divide Americans up based on demographic characteristics, and that claim was repeated many times during Thursday night's debate.
Trump thinks mistakenly that he is going to win re-election by dividing us up, black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American.
This is his attempt to divide us, as Senator Sanders said, on race. This is a racial argument by a racist president who's trying to divide us.
With one conspicuous exception, though. It's absolutely fine. In fact, it's a moral imperative, some of these candidates might argue, to call out wealthy Americans as some sort of subclass, some sort of universal boogeyman who should be presumed evil on sight.
The issue is not old or young, male or female. The issue is working people standing up, taking on the billionaire class.
I am not working for millionaires and billionaires. I don't do call time with millionaires and billionaires.
Racism bad, sexism bad, bigotry overall bad, except classism, that one's actually good. Toward the end of the debate, Bernie actually said we have to stop dividing people up because that benefits the social division he doesn't like.
Not the Trump vision of dividing us up to benefit the billionaire class. That's my vision.
It's morally wrong to divide people because that benefits the morally wrong social division. Untangle that mental knot if you can. If it's morally wrong to divide, there is no morally wrong division, but Americans of wealth get a presumption of immorality anyway, regardless of whether they've actually done anything wrong or not. And this automatic vilification was on full display on Thursday night with two major pieces of the same ongoing fight. First, Elizabeth Warren called out Pete Buttigieg for having a campaign fundraiser in a secret rich wine cave.
The mayor just recently had a fundraiser that was held in a wine cave full of crystals and served $900 a bottle wine. Think about who comes to that. We made the decision many years ago that rich people in smoke-filled rooms would not pick the next president of the United States. Billionaires in wine caves should not pick the next president.
And Bernie Sanders called out Joe Biden and Pete for accepting a few dozen campaign contributions from billionaire donors.
I am rather proud, maybe, I don't know, the only candidate up here doesn't have any billionaire contributions. Now, there's a real competition going on up here. My good friend Joe, and he is a good friend, he's received contributions from 44 billionaires. Pete, on the other hand, is trailing. Pete, you only got 39 billionaires contributing.
Why we're supposed to listen to millionaires lecture us about the supposed immorality of billionaires is anyone's guess. An effective point Pete made in response to Warren.
According to Forbes magazine, I am literally the only person on this stage who's not a millionaire or a billionaire. This is the problem with issuing purity tests you cannot yourself pass. If I pledged never to be in the company of a progressive Democratic donor, I couldn't be up here. Senator, your net worth is 100 times mine.
All of this hypocritical squabbling never addressed the fundamental question at its basis, and the question we should all hear answered at the next debate. Is it possible to be moral and wealthy? Because almost every point made on this stage says no. The implication is that wealth and morality have a simple inverse relationship. The more wealth you have, the less moral you are, which presumes fundamentally there is no moral way to gain wealth, or at least wealth beyond whatever their arbitrary threshold is. But why not? In the context of race or gender or any other trait, these candidates would argue that it's wrong to judge the individual without respect to that individual's character. But if he or she is rich, well, we automatically know that individual's character, so go ahead and judge away. Except we don't know. Bernie ripped Biden based on this Forbes reporting that shows people over $1 billion net worth donating to Joe's campaign. The accusation being that they're buying politicians.
You have a handful of billionaires who spend hundreds of millions of dollars buying elections and politicians.
But they're limited to the same $2,800 individual cap to candidates that everybody is. Why shouldn't they be able to participate in the political process by the same rules as anybody else? What is it about the $1 billion threshold that makes these people some immoral subclass? All we know about them is that they operate businesses that provide goods and services that people purchase voluntarily to better their lives. And a cursory search shows these names are putting their money behind massive charities to benefit people's lives further. Where is the immorality in people voluntarily doing business with you? Where is the immorality in using the wealth built through those voluntary exchanges to benefit people in need? And if you are one of these evil billionaires, is there anything you can do to atone and remove your scarlet letter? Apparently not. Forbes made Bernie aware in November that one billionaire's wife had made a $470 donation to his campaign. Bernie said thanks for the notification, and he returned the woman's money because she's morally unfit, as though Bernie knows the personal character of every single one of his donors. Why would a $500 donation from a middle-class felon, for example, be perfectly morally square, but a $470 donation from a billionaire's wife is a sin to be cleansed? And this lady agrees with Bernie about Citizens United and political spending, and she's put her money behind these causes. She's a former Vietnam protester. She wants higher taxes on herself. She checks every progressive ideological box, but what's her crime? She married a guy who developed a sensor for self-driving cars to detect their surroundings. Her family developed new technology, and for that, she is morally unfit. And so is the Wine Cave, by the way, for the same nebulous reasons. The venue we're supposed to believe is some evil plotting headquarters high atop Mount Doom is actually just a family vineyard in California. Hashtag Wine Cave trended on Twitter after the debate. Blue check journalists had already exposed this wine cave and its fancy crystal chandelier a few days ago, with respondents now swarming to rip the venue, speculating where the Epstein tunnel might be. Perhaps we'd get a better view if we could even afford to look at the place. Except you can. The place is called Hall Winery. It's a family operation on 500 acres of Napa Valley land. The Hall family has operated the business since 2003, and you can visit their facilities and enjoy the same wine cave tasting for yourself for about $100. Why are they presumed to be some elitist secret society monopoly man pedophile ring just because they built a family business that people want to visit and patronize? Fundamentally, this entire presumption of the immorality of the wealthy is based upon a faulty understanding of how wealth is built. These candidates don't really explain in detail, so I have to guess, but piecing it together, they seem to believe that wealth is finite, that you having wealth necessarily means that someone else doesn't, that building wealth necessarily means taking rather than creating. If we presume wealth is taken rather than created, that's how we arrive at the supposed moral failure of being rich. The only way you can get rich is by taking from somebody else. But that's not how wealth comes to be. And for all the reliance on Forbes pieces to demonize the wealthy, I wish these candidates would read this older one from Yaron Brook. The economy is not a pie. It's not a fixed amount of wealth or a zero-sum game, which means your share of it is not indicative of your quality of life. Your well-being can grow even if your share of the pie shrinks, if the pie itself is always getting larger. And how does it get larger? A man uses his mind and his existing property to bring new wealth into existence. That's how billion-dollar companies start as garage operations. Not by taking from anybody else, but by building something new that betters people's lives so they choose to consume it voluntarily. That's not immorality. That's perfectly moral. And from a purely practical perspective, that builds a better quality of life for everyone every single day. Imagine if we had demonized Henry Ford or Steve Jobs and called them evil and spent our time arguing over how to distribute the horse-drawn buggies and typewriters instead. Perhaps you do get a larger slice in that scenario. But who cares about the size of your slice if the pie is made of shit? Is it possible to be wealthy and moral? Or should wealth be presumed immoral? I want that question asked point blank at the next debate. I want to watch these candidates squirm, trying to come up with an answer that doesn't implicate themselves. Billionaires are evil because they take other people's money. Unlike us millionaire politicians who became rich literally by taking tax money at gunpoint. And by the way, taking even more of other people's money is the solution to every problem society faces. If taking is wrong, you don't take your way out of it. Both society and the individual prosper when we stop trying to take and start trying to build. If every person on Twitter used the time they spent resenting that wine cave chandelier and concentrated instead on building one for themselves, Pretty soon, we'd all have nice things, and our lives would be filled with enjoyment, not animosity. But hey, go ahead and try this approach where we all just sit around stewing with resentment instead. That way, nobody builds any wine caves. But at least we'll all be equal, both in our unearned self-righteous sense of moral superiority and in our perpetual misery, too. Thanks, as always, for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.